Hello, my lovely rose garden. This is Avalon Roselin.
And Ray.
And we're back with another chapter of Throne of Ass, chapter 26. And I feel like I've said that we're halfway through this book, for the last 10 chapters, it truly feels like we are going nowhere.
Yeah, it feels like it's been the middle of the book for a long time. You know how the second act tends to drag in, badly written literature?
Yeah, and not in the way that it's, somewhat normal for it to drag, but in the way that, hey, we've introduced about 3 or 4 different potential plots and don't seem to be following up on any of them.
Nope.
We're not really following up with the tournaments. We're not really following up with the murder mystery. Now we have a ghost quest in the mix. And there's also the whole Alexis wanting her freedom thing, which is supposed to tie in with the tournament, but really doesn't feel like that in any meaningful way. So, I don't know, maybe this chapter will give us yet another new plot. Is there a plot in this chapter? Maybe.
Maybe so.
The doors to her bedroom banged open, and Alexis was on her feet in an instant, a candlestick in hand. Oh, she's finally having reflexes. And chapter 26. Amazing. But Kale took no notice of her as he stormed in, his jaw clenched. She groaned and slumped back onto her bed. "Don't you ever sleep," she grumbled, pulling the covers over herself. "Weren't you celebrating into the wee hours of the morning?" He put a hand on his sword as he ripped back the blankets and dragged her out of bed by the elbow. "Where were you last night?" She pushed away the fear that tightened her throat. There was no way he could know about the passages. What do you mean there's no way he could know?
There's no way he could know?
I mean, I guess that is fairly reasonable, as he would definitely not have allowed her to stay in a room that had access to secret passages if he knew about it. But he is the captain of the guard, so I would hope that he would know about these things, or at least that there are secret passages, even if he doesn't know the specific access point.
Yeah.
Anyway, she smiled at him. "Here, of course. Didn't you gizzit to give me this?" She yanked her elbow out of his grasp and waved her fingers in front of him, displaying the amethyst ring. "That was for a few minutes. What about the rest of the night?" She refused to step back as he studied her face, then her hands, then the rest of her. As he did so, she returned the favor. His black tunic was unbuttoned at the top and slightly wrinkled, and his short hair needed a combing. Whatever this was, he was in a rush. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure that you have obscure knowledge in this vein. Tunics don't typically have buttons, do they?
Not usually.
By the collar? Because I just purchased a tunic.
Yeah, not usually. They're usually, tunics either have a loose collar or a drawstring.
Yeah, mine has a drawstring.
Tunics generally do not button either in the front or back.
Yeah, that seems a tad modern for a tunic.
I mean, we've had buttons for a long time, but tunics are
Tunics are like pullover.
Yeah.
Wear. They're underwear.
Yeah.
You don't button up your fucking underwear.
Yeah. It's not really, they don't really have, just saying that it's a shirt would probably be best. Because, yeah. If this is supposed to be pseudo-Victorian era or whatever, they would definitely have, button-up shirts, and they wouldn't be called tunics.
Yeah. Because, again, tunic is kind of either it is your underwear, or you pull it on over.
Yeah.
Just my vague knowledge of Ren fairs has informed me of this. And also, yes, I now own a tunic, because the Fire Emblem brain rot finally became too much. And now I'm pulling together a Roy cosplay, because I am the perfect height to be Roy. I cannot be Marth. I'm too short.
I mean, you can be, but...
In an ironic twist of fate, guess who is Marth's exact height? You mock me. So I'm forcing Ray to be Marth.
Yeah.
My husband will be dressed as my husband. Husbandception.
Husbandception, husband squared.
I can kiss two husbands at once.
Unlimited power.
What's all the fuss about? Don't we have a test this morning?
Wow, they scheduled a test for right after Samhain. That's fucking evil. We aren't even going to work that day. Our union said no. She picked at her nails as she waited for an answer. It's been cancelled. A champion was found dead this morning. Xavier, the thief from Melisande. They have to remind us who Xavier is because no one fucking cares.
I don't think this man's name has been brought up.
She flicked her eyes to him, then back to her nails.
And I suppose you think I did it?
I'm hoping you didn't, as the body was half eaten.
Eaten?
She crinkled her nose. She sat cross-legged on the bed, propping herself on her hands.
How gruesome. Perhaps Cain did it. He's beastly enough to do such a thing.
Her stomach felt tight. Another champion murdered. Did it have to do with whatever evil Elena had mentioned? The Eye-Eater and the other two champions' killings hadn't just been a fluke or a drunken brawl. Yeah, we know. As the investigation had determined.
Let me hold your hand while I say this.
No, this was a pattern. You fucking think?
No shit.
Did it have to do with whatever evil Elena had mentioned? I would fucking hope so. Because if it's not, and these are two unconnected plots, I will give myself another haircut. I don't know. I'm not making any drastic or bold claims because I legitimately fear that these might be unrelated. In a competent book, there would be no question, and Alexis would immediately be like, this must be the evil. But in this book, I'm not sure. I don't have that much faith. Kale sighed through his nose. I'm glad you find humor in a man's murder. She made herself grin at him.
Cain is the most likely candidate. You're from Aeriel. You should know more than anyone how they are in the White Fang Mountains.
Oh, being a little prejudiced there, ain't you, bitch?
Wow, the racism. Also, like, yeah, she would find humor in this. She's an assassin, dude. Like, come on.
She's an assassin, and you have been, like, on her ass about the security around this tournament from day one. Yeah, I would be finding this kind of humorous. You've been so worried about her that there's a whole other killer walking around like nothing. It's dark comedy, to be sure, but what other kind of comedy would you expect an assassin to have? So, yeah, it would kind of track if she did find this legitimately funny. Although I suppose we're meant to believe that she's putting on an appearance for some reason in front of Kale. I don't know why, because half of the time she seems to be trying to convince him of her humanity and goodness. And then the other time she's being flippant and bitchy and like she wants him to think that she's heartless, and I don't understand how that benefits her. But okay. He ran a hand through his short hair. You should mind who you accuse. While Cain is a brute, he's Duke Parrington's champion.
And I'm the Crown Prince's champion.
She flipped her hair over her shoulder.
I should think that means I can accuse whomever I please.
No.
She's got a point. If he's getting a pass because Duke Parrington is his sponsor, then yeah, she should also be getting, I mean, at least the appearance of a pass.
I'm just like, no, she isn't in a position to be throwing out accusations.
Yeah, like, he should have just stopped with, you should mind who you accuse, and then said something like, despite his crimes, you still have a higher kill count, or something like that. Yeah. Not, well, Duke Parrington is his sponsor. Like, that's a stupid reason.
I think it doesn't matter who her sponsor is. She's still not part of the royal family. So if she throws out an accusation, that could be dangerous for her, regardless of who her sponsor is.
Yeah, I don't know. Just tell me plainly, where were you last night? She straightened, staring into his golden brown eyes.
As my guards can attest, I was here the entire night, though if the king wants me questioned, I can always tell him that you can vouch for me too. Cale glanced at her ring, and she hid her smile as a faint line of color crept into his cheeks. He said, I'm sure you'll be even more pleased to hear that you and I won't be having a lesson today. She grinned at that, and sighed dramatically as she slid back under the blankets and nestled into her pillows. Immensely pleased. She pulled the blankets up to her chin and batted her eyelashes at him. Now get out. I'm going to celebrate by sleeping for another 5 hours. A lie, but he bought it. She closed her eyes. I'm glad they told us that, because I would assume that she was just going back to sleep. She closed her eyes before she could see the glare he gave her, and smiled. Then how did she know that he... Okay, whatever. That's pedantic. I'm not going to harp on it. And smiled to herself when she heard him stalk out of the room. It was only when she heard him slam the doors to her room that she sat up. The champion had been eaten? Last night in her dream. No, it hadn't been a dream. It had been real, and there had been those screeching creatures. Had Xavier been killed by one of them? But they'd been in the tomb. There was no way they could have been in the castle halls without someone noticing. Some vermin probably got to the body before it was found. Very, very hungry vermin. Chewed their way out like a rat. She shuddered again and leapt out from under the blankets. She needed a few more makeshift weapons and a way to fortify the locks on her windows and doors. Even as she readied her defenses, she kept assuring herself that it was nothing to worry about at all. But with the few hours of freedom ahead of her, she brought as many of them with her as possible as she locked the door to her bedroom and slipped into the tomb. Time skip Tildy.
Great.
Elisicles paced the length of the tomb, snarling to herself. There was nothing here that explained Elena's motives, or what the source of this mysterious evil might be. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
In the daytime, a ray of sunlight shone into the tomb, making all the dust motes she stirred up swirl like falling snow. How was it possible that there was light so far beneath the castle? Elisicles paused beneath the grate in the ceiling, peering up at the light flowing through it. Sure enough, the sides of the shaft shimmered.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I was like, damn, that's...
Say it 5 times fast, real quick.
I'm amazed I got through it once, medium. The sides of the shaft shimmered, 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 the sides of the shaft shimmered.
You flubbed a little bit, but you were pretty good. That was pretty good.
I did my best. They were lined with polished gold. A lot of gold, if it meant reflecting the sun's rays all the way down here. Elisicles stalked between the two sarcophagi. Though she'd brought 3 of her makeshift weapons, she'd found no trace of whatever had been growling and screeching last night, and no trace of Elena either. Elisicles paused beside Elena's sarcophagus. The blue gem embedded in her stone crown pulsed in the faint sunlight.
What was your purpose in telling me to do those things?
She mused aloud, her voice echoing off of the intricately carved walls.
You've been dead for 1,000 years. Why still bother with Aeriel?
And why not get Dorian or Kael or Nehemia or someone else to do it? Because you're from Terrasen and probably her distant descendant, you dumb bitch. Elisicles wrapped a finger on the queen's pert nose.
We wish.
I'm trying my best.
One would think you'd have better things to do with your afterlife.
I don't know, handing out prophecies and warning people of impending doom seems pretty on brand for an afterlife. Though she tried to grin, her voice came out quieter than she would have liked. She should go. Even with her bedroom door locked, someone was bound to come looking for her sooner or later, and she highly doubted that anyone would believe her if she told them she'd been charged with a very important mission by the first queen of Aderlin. In fact, she realized with a grimace, she'd be lucky if she weren't accused of treason and magic using. It would certainly guarantee her return to Endovier. After a final sweep of the tomb, Elisicles left. There was nothing useful here, and besides, if Elena wanted her to be the king's champion so badly, then she couldn't spend all her time hunting down whatever this evil was. Oh, that's right, they are trying to fuse all the plots by Elena being like, you must become the king's champion and also root out the evil.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, fellas. Did someone mention the door to darkness?
Just Elena gets Mickey's voice now if she ever shows up again.
No, I still like her with Silver.
Oh, okay.
I just like doing Silver's voice. I think it's cute. It would probably hurt her chances of winning, actually. Alysicles hurried up the steps, her torch casting odd shadows on the walls. If this evil was as threatening as Elena made it seem, then how could she possibly defeat it? I don't know. You've spent the whole time telling us what a badass assassin you are. Maybe you could badass assassin it.
Yeah.
You could badass assassin it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I tried to combine badass and assassin, and my brain could not.
Badass in it?
Bad assassinate. Bad assassinate. But then that just sounds like I'm saying bad assassinate, like assassinate it badly. I don't think
do it good, assassinate it bad.
I don't think there's going to be a good way to fuse these words.
I think badassonate worked.
Yeah, badassonate. Not that the thought of something wicked dwelling in the castle scared her or anything. Ooh. Who are you trying to convince right now? No, it wasn't that at all, Alysicles huffed. She'd focus on becoming King's champion, and then if she won, she'd go about finding this evil. Maybe. Truly a charmed one. Refusing to do something that will benefit others. Time skip tilde! An hour later. I feel like we didn't need a tilde for an hour later, if you're just going to include an hour later.
Yeah.
Okay, though. You know, hey, when you don't know how to end a sentence, you put an ellipses or an em dash, and when you don't know how to end a scene, you tilde.
Tilde.
An hour later, flanked by guards, Alysicles held her chin high as they strode through the halls toward the library. She smiled at the young chevaliers. I know it's like Fantasy France or whatever, but if you're going to use the English terminology for everything else, why not just cavalier?
Yeah.
Come on. And smirked at the court women who eyed her pink and white gown. She couldn't blame them. The dress was spectacular, and she was spectacular in it. Even Ress, one of the handsomer guards posted outside her rooms, had said so. Now the guards have names. Because we didn't have enough named characters already. We're just going to throw some guards in there. So Ress is definitely going to die.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm just calling that one now. She's going to come back later and she's just going to be like, oh my god, Ress! We kissed once. Some shit like that. Naturally, it hadn't been too difficult to convince him to escort her to the library. Alysicles smiled smugly to herself as she nodded to a passing nobleman who raised his eyebrows at the sight of her. He was immensely pale, she noticed as he opened his mouth to say something, but Alysicles continued down the hall. Her steps quickened at the rumblings of arguing male voices that echoed off the stones as they neared a bend. Hurrying farther, Alysicles ignored the click of Ress's tongue as she rounded the corner. She knew that smell all too well, the tang of blood and the stinging reek of decomposing flesh. But she hadn't expected the sight of it. Half-eaten was a pleasant way to describe what was left of Xavier's rail-thin body. So they're just, like, leaving him out in the middle of the fucking hallway? If she's just walking by and can get this close to the crime scene, you'd think they'd have this hallway closed off.
I don't know, man.
One of her escorts cursed under his breath, and Ress stepped closer to her, a light hand on her back, encouraging her to keep walking. None of the gathered men looked at her as she passed, skirting the edge of the scene, and getting a better look at the body in the process. Here's some gore. Xavier's chest cavity had been split open, and his vital organs removed. Unless someone had moved them upon finding the body, there was no trace of them. And his long face, stripped of its flesh, was still contorted in a silent scream. Ah! This was no accidental killing. Thank you for that.
He was eaten.
I would have assumed that he just got in a bar fight. You know, removing organs like you do in a bar fight.
I'm going to hold your hand while I tell you this.
There was a hole in the crown of Xavier's head, and she could see that his brain was gone, too. You are not that close.
Clearly just a bar fight.
Okay, unless, like, the whole top half of his head is gone and you can see the hole inside. Slurp.
Slurp.
There is no way that she is close enough to be getting this much detail if there's just, like, a hole in his forehead.
Gross.
Whatever, dude. The smears of blood on the wall looked like someone had been writing and then rubbed it away. But even now, some of the writing remained.
Someone had an idea.
And they were like, nah, that's lame.
Nah.
They started to write enemies of the air beware, and then they were like, wait, no, that's copyrighted. Shit. But even now, some of the writing remained, and she tried not to gape at it. Word marks. 3 word marks, forming an arcing line that had to have once been a circle near the body. Holy gods, one of her guards muttered as they left behind the throng at the crime scene. No wonder Kale had looked so disheveled this morning. She straightened. He'd thought she did this? Fool. No, you idiot.
He never
accused you. He asked where you were last night, and then when you were like, oh, you said it, he was like, well, I hope not, because the body was half-eaten, implying that no, he does not think you did this, but he's wondering if you might have seen something that happened, and also, if we are to believe this bullshit love triangle that they're trying to set up here, I say there, like I don't know who's responsible, like she is trying to set up here, he's probably expressing concern for your well-being, and making sure that you're okay. Like, if the first thing he does, which is implied by his state of undress, when he figures out what happened, is go running to your rooms and, like, throwing open the door to see if you're inside, probably he was concerned and worried. Because clearly this does not match your typical MO. Like, what are you not grasping?
I don't know.
Because the math is mathing pretty easily, right? 2 + 2 = 4 here. 1 + 1 is 2, and 3 + 3 is 6. This bitch is trying to discern some quantum physics that simply do not exist here.
No.
If she wanted to knock off her competitors one by one, she'd do it quick and clean. A slit throat, a knife in the heart, a poisoned glass of wine. This was just plain tasteless. And strange. The word marks made this something more than a brutal killing. Ritualistic, perhaps. Do you think it might have something to do with the evil?
The evil?
The evil.
You know, the evil.
Hey, do you think that this clearly dark magic might have something to do with the evil?
The evil, you know.
The
evil.
Darkness.
Dark. Heart, darkness, light, dark, Kingdom Hearts, Keyblade.
Memory, friendship. Light, darkness? Are we getting through you?
Evil. You know, the evil.
That evil. The evil that is in the castle.
The evil within the castle. The castle's evil. That evil.
The evil specifically tasked to you to defeat by Elena, who was queen of this castle and knows of the evil within this castle. That evil. Do you think there's a dot here and there's a dot right next to it? And I don't know how, but this bitch has a whole Etch-a-Sketch going on.
She's like
doing everything but connecting the two.
Where am I going with this? She went up and she's just continuing to go up. She's like, I'll figure it out someday.
We'll find out the answer to this and more in Kingdom Hearts 3.5 Fragmentary Birth by Passage 358 over 9 days. Remix. Anyway. It's been a Kingdom Hearts kind of week. Okay. Someone approached from the opposite direction. It was Grave, the vicious assassin. Don't be throwing stones, bitch. If you live in a glass castle, you don't be throwing stones. Staring at the body from a distance. His eyes, dark and still, like a forest pool, met hers. What the fuck does that mean, Goofy?
A forest pool. You know, the pools in the forests that people build.
Yeah, okay.
Just, you know.
She ignored his rotting teeth as she jerked her chin towards the remnants of Xavier.
Why are you fucking around with his teeth.
Because
you were in a prison camp for a year. Your teeth probably suck too.
Because everyone who's bad is ugly. And everyone who's hot is good.
Boring.
Too bad, she said, deliberately not sounding very sorry at all.
What do you mean deliberately not sounding very sorry? You're not sorry. You don't give a shit about this guy, and you've made that exceedingly clear with your flippant actions and responses. Like, she could play up this persona in front of Kale for reasons I cannot comprehend as much as she wants, but that does not mean that secretly she actually cares.
Grave chuckled, sticking his gnarled fingers into the pockets of his worn and dirty pants. Didn't his sponsor bother to properly clothe him? Obviously not, if his sponsor was nasty and foolish enough to pick him as a champion.
Stones, glass castles.
You are also an assassin, bitch. I don't...
Such a pity, Graves said, shrugging as she passed by him. She nodded tersely, and despite herself, she kept her mouth shut as she continued down the hall. Thank gods. There were only 16 of them left now, 16 champions, and 4 of them were to duel. The competition was getting steeper. She should thank whatever grim god had decided to end Xavier's life, but for some reason she couldn't. Yeah, so it's not a front for Kale. You literally do not give a shit that someone is killing these champions. Beyond just being worried that you might be next. So you can't be like, she pretended not to care and she deliberately tried not to sound sorry. You're not. Why are you trying to convince us that you give a shit?
Because we have to have, like, the, at least somewhat attempt at portraying our protagonist as a good person deep down. And I'm like, but she's not, though.
And this is what kills it for me. Because if she just was a bad bitch who didn't give a fuck and was just like, how could I make this benefit me? I would be down for that.
Same.
I would be on that ride. I would be like, okay, she's a morally gray assassin. Let's see where this goes. But instead, I keep seeing they. She, the writer, Sarah J. Maas, keeps trying to pull this, but she's actually a good guy kind of routine. And I'm like, no, that's not who you've written. That is not the character that you created.
She's an assassin. She's kind of a terrible person who's very selfish and self-involved. And that's fine. Just own that.
And if we could just have those traits consistently, we could have an interesting character. But no. She has to be likable. And I'm sorry, because a bunch of people out there are probably going to be like, well, I'm saying a bunch of people, like a bunch of people are going to watch this video. But somehow, if this video ever did break containment and reach the Throne of Glass fandom, they'd probably be like, no, she's not supposed to be likable. And I'm like, then why does Sarah J. Maas keep trying to write her as though we are supposed to empathize with her thoughts and feelings?
Because she's kind of a jerk.
Because she's an asshole. And sometimes, that's all you need. Moving on. POV switch tilde. We've had so many tildes.
Tilde.
Dorian swung his sword, grunting as Kale easily deflected the blow and parried. His muscles were sore from weeks of not practicing.
Sword fighting.
And his breath was ragged in his throat as he thrust and thrust again. I am absolutely going to read this like a sex scene.
Do it. We gotta make our own fun somehow.
Oh my god. Their dialogue too. It's going to be great. Just pretend that they're like shirtless on a bed while I read this.
I am, actively. Go for it.
This is what comes from such idle behavior, Kale chuckled, stepping to the side.
His stamina has just decreased because they haven't had time to run off together.
Stepping to the side so that Dorian stumbled forward. He remembered a time when they'd been of equal skill, though that had been long ago. Dorian, while he still enjoyed swordplay, had grown to prefer books. Oh, he's the bottom now. We knew that.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
They used to be switches, but now Dorian is clearly the bottom.
He's the pillow prince now. I've had meetings and important things to read, Dorian said, panting.
Putting on the UK voice.
He lunged. I'm doing my best.
Continue.
Kale deflected, feigned, then thrust so hard that Dorian stepped back. His temper rose. I don't know who's talking. Because Dorian was just talking.
It doesn't matter.
But all the action in this is... Well, I need to know if I need to be the uke or the seme, so it does matter, actually.
It's fine.
Okay, it is Dorian. Meetings which you used as an excuse to start arguing with Duke Parrington. Dorian made a wide sweep of his sword, and Kale took up the defensive. Or maybe you're just too busy visiting Sardothian's rooms in the middle of the night.
Oh no, these both sound like Kale.
Oh shit,
yeah.
You're right.
Okay, so...
it is Kale. Okay. Meetings which you used as an excuse to start arguing with Duke Parrington. Dorian made a wide sweep of his sword, and Kale took up the defensive. Or maybe you're just too busy visiting Sardothian's rooms in the middle of the night. Sweat dripped from Kale's brow. How long has that been going on? Are you cheating on me?
Are you cheating on me as he thrusts into his ass? Bam! Just like Emerald. Bam, bam, bam!
Shut up. Brat Tamer Kale's going on my bingo board. Dorian growled as Kale switched to the offensive and conceded step after step, his thighs aching.
Yeah, his thighs.
It's not what you think, he said through his teeth. I don't spend my nights with her. Aside from last night, I only visited her once, and she was less than warm. Don't worry, senpai. At least one of you has some common sense. Kale delivered each blow with such precision that Dorian had to remind him. Because you've clearly lost your mind. What about you? Dorian demanded. Do you want me to comment on how you showed up in her rooms last night? The same night another champion died? Dorian fainted, but Kale didn't fall for it. Instead, he struck strongly enough that Dorian staggered back a step, fighting to keep his footing. Dorian grimaced at the rage flickering in Kale's eyes. Fine, that was a cheap shot, he admitted, bringing his sword up to deflect another blow. But I still want an answer. Maybe I don't have one. Like you said, it's not what you think. Kale's brown eyes gleamed. A lot of things happening in Kale's eyes this scene.
They
okay,
are
you know
literally inches from each other.
Now I'm the bitch throwing stones in glass houses, because I also describe eyes a lot, so I need to humble myself on that one. Calm down, you're getting too spicy. But before Dorian could debate it, his boyfriend switched the subject with brutal aim. How's court? Kale asked, breathing hard. Dorian winced. That was why he was here. If he had to spend another moment sitting in his mother's court, he'd go mad. That terrible? Shut up! Dorian snarled and slammed his sword into Kale's. It must be exceptionally awful to be you today. I bet all the ladies were begging you to protect them from the murderer inside our walls. Kale grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Taking the time to spar with him when there was a fresh corpse in the castle was a sacrifice Dorian was surprised Kale had been willing to make.
Yeah, why is there still, like, a corpse just, like, hanging out in the castle? Why didn't they remove that?
Dorian knew how much his position meant to him. Dorian stopped suddenly and straightened. Kale should be doing more important things right now. Enough, he said, sheathing his rapier. Not missing a step, Kale did the same. I guess they're done.
No, they put on the condom.
See, I read that as, oh, back in the pants we go. I'm so glad that I'm not monetized. Because I don't have to worry about losing monetization. Speaking of which, if you would like to support Roselin Books...
And these fine reads...
I am actually moving my main support base over to Ko-fi, or Ko-fi, or Ko-fi, or however you say it. I am going to keep my Patreon up. The Patreon will still be there, but I am going to be moving my activity more toward Ko-fi. So if you want to support me, you can become a monthly member on Ko-fi, just like Patreon does, or you could make a one-time donation. Regardless, there are rewards. And my shop is now also moved to Ko-fi. So before we have had the ebooks where it's pay what you want, starting at $1 for the ebook files of all my books. I'm slowly getting the signed paperback copies set up on there as well. Right now we have Alice signed paperbacks, unless they're sold out by the time this becomes public. So just so you're aware, if you want to support us, Patreon is still an option, but Ko-fi will be the primary way to get rewards and things like that. And this is mainly because Patreon is now doing this thing where they are going to force to a different billing model that just doesn't work out as well for me. And I don't really care for the way that Patreon's management has been going in the past couple of years. So I've talked to a lot of other creators, and they seem to like Ko-fi a lot in terms of community engagement, support, rewards, having a shop. It just seems to be a better way to support content creators. So if you want to support Roselin Books, I recommend the Ko-fi. Also, Patreon is there, or you could just buy our books anywhere that books are sold online, and that is a great way to help support what we do and also enjoy our own original stories that we create. Back to this. They walked from the sparring room in silence. Any word from your father?
They were fucking in the sparring room, huh? Wow.
Oh, abso-fucking-lutely they were. There's some steamy things that could happen in the sparring room.
What happens in the sparring room stays in the sparring room.
Any word from your father? Kale asked in a voice that indicated he knew something was amiss. I wonder where he went off to. Dorian let out a long breath, calming his panting. Not beating those allegations. No, I haven't the slightest idea. I remember him leaving like this when we were children, but it hasn't happened for some years now. I bet he's doing something particularly nasty. Be careful what you say, Dorian. Or what? You'll throw me in the dungeons, Daddy? Yeah, I threw the daddy in there, but could you tell? Does it not sound like it fits? He didn't mean to snap, but he'd barely gotten any sleep the night before. And this champion winding up dead did nothing to improve his mood. When Kale didn't bother retorting, Dorian asked, Do you think someone wants to kill all the champions? Perhaps. I can understand wanting to kill the competition, but to do it so viciously, I hope it's not a pattern. It already is.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. He's a little foggy from the pheromones. Perhaps. Oh, sorry, I read that line already. Dorian's blood went a bit cold. You think they'll try to kill Alexis? I added some extra guards around her rooms. To protect her or keep her in? They stopped at the hallway crossroad. That's all, folks. They stopped at the hallway crossroads where they would part ways to their separate rooms. What difference does it make? Kale said quietly. You don't seem to care either way. You'll visit her no matter what I say, and the guards won't stop you because you're the prince. There was something so defeated, so bitter, underlying the captain's words that Dorian, for a heartbeat, felt badly. He should stay away from Alexis. Kale had enough to worry about. But then he thought of the list his mother made and realized he had had enough too. I need to inspect Xavier's body again. I'll see you in the hall for dinner tonight, was all Kale said before he headed to his rooms. Dorian watched him go. When you walk away, You don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go. I like that we started off kind of sincere and then it just sort of became a discordant mess. Just like this book. The walk back to his tower felt surprisingly long. He opened the wooden door to his rooms, peeling off his clothing as he headed to the bathing room. He had the entire tower to himself. I'm not going to say it.
Gotta wash yourself off.
He had the entire tower to himself, though his chambers occupied only the upper level. They provided a haven from everyone, but today they just felt empty. Like his anus. I wasn't going to, but god damn it.
Wash your ass out.
And that was chapter 26. She's trying to weave these plot threads together. We'll see how that goes.
Yeehaw.
And I think my brain has taken enough psychic damage for now, so we're gonna sign off. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!